don't know. Like, as for Age of Apocalypse, I'm not keen. I'm really not keen at this current moment in time. So, like I say, like I could be wrong. Come the summer, I could be completely wrong. Like, I could have seen Days of Future Past and go, I can't wait! Oh, Singer needs to direct another X-Men movie. I
hope
need to
that's
see
the way
this.
I want to feel. I hope I feel like that. Well, I felt like that with the first two X-Men movie. X-Men 3 not so much. Wolverine was terrible. X-Men Days of Future Past was really, really good. Got me excited.
First Class was good.
Or First Class, sorry.
Yeah.
Got me really excited. And I
you see, the Wolverine was the last one that we saw, the one set in Japan, and it was terrible.
Yeah, pardon the expression, but it's left a really bad taste in your mouth, hasn't it? I mean, it's like I don't want any more X-Men after seeing that.
No, I just feel so much fatigue now.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, I have the X-Men trilogy on Blu-ray sitting there on my shelf, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it going, I really want to watch X2 again.
Yeah.
And for some reason, anytime I reach for it, I go, oh, could you be bothered?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, good movie, but yeah, really. Speaking of Days of Future Past, I'm expecting to get emails tomorrow from Fox telling us to take this down, so if you get a chance, go to followingnerd.com right now and take a look at it. It's our first look at Quicksilver.
Yes.
What do you call the guy that plays him?
Silver.
Evan Peters. Who's not only is he silver, his hair's silver.
Yeah, we get it. Quicksilver.
Quick. I wonder, is he quick?
Easy.
Honestly, it looks terrible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It looks really, really dull. But then again, it is set in the 70s, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that could have something to do with the fact that he's wearing a bright, sparkly silver jacket.
Yeah, and silver shoes, and like a really deep silver trousers. And his hair's silver. His hair in the comic was kind of white, but anyway. Yeah. So we still have to see Joss Whedon's take on the character because, of course, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Kick-Ass is playing him in that movie. A same character. I still wish to have the same actor to play in both movies.
Yeah,
bit
of crossover.
Yeah.
Even though it's different studios.
Yeah, because Michael Keaton
really
played
nice.
the same character in Out of Sight and Jackie Brown and what was the other one? Can't remember. But he played the same character in 3 movies, even though the movies weren't
related in any way.
They were all written by
all different things.
But but that would have been nice. Okay, right. Big story. Remember last week we were talking about Denzel Washington, the preposterous rumour that Denzel Washington was going to be John Stewart, the Green Lantern, in Batman. Batman versus Superman, or whatever it's called. Batman, Superman,
World's Finest,
Justice
probably,
League, plus Wonder Woman, whatever. Which it was a bit preposterous, wasn't it?
Just a wee tiny bit, yeah.
So now the rumour is, we talked about The Rock last week, because, how you could play a Lobo or Doomsday or Martian Manhunter or, one of the big, huge muscle. Now apparently The Rock is going to be the Green Lantern.
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
No, he's really not.
I don't really think so.
I think he's going to be like Kilowog. Or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Somebody like, the big guy who trains.
Do we need a CGI?
Jordan.
No, just put a mask on him.
Simple as that.
Because he's huge. Anyway, that'll do. So I don't see this happening, do you?
No, really not.
No, it's unlikely. Right. Star Wars news. Woohoo! We've got Star Wars news. Yes.
Always good to have a bit of Star Wars news.
Yes, we've got Star Wars news. Marvel have taken over. It has been announced that Marvel Comics are going to take over the Star Wars property in 2015 from Dark Horse. So we saw this coming, didn't we?
Oh yeah, from a mile away.
Yeah, I mean, because once Disney took over and Disney owned Marvel and everything else, it was pretty much... It was a certain.
It was a done deal. Yeah.
In a full press release, Walt Disney Company, Lucasfilm Limited, Marvel Entertainment are joining forces to bring Star Wars adventures to readers across the galaxy, with Marvel granted exclusive rights to create and publish Star Wars comics and graphic novels beginning in 2015. The agreement marks a homecoming for the Star Wars comics, as Marvel Comics published the first Star Wars comic book, Star Wars Issue 1, in March 1977, which went on to sell more than 1 million Star Wars comic copies. Marvel Comics published the Star Wars series for 9 years. In 1981, Dark Horse Comics took over the license, publishing fan favourites like Dark Empire, Star Wars Legacy. Last year, Dark Horse released Star Wars Issue 1, an adaptation of George Lucas's original rough draft screenplay, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Dark Horse Comics have produced exceptional Star Wars comics for over 20 years, and we will always be grateful for their enormous contributions, yada, yada, yada. Good luck. I don't know how to feel about this, because I know Marvel obviously know what they're at.
Well, yeah, you'd like to think so, because before they made movies, they made comic books.
Yes, they did. And let's be honest, they are, along with DC, on and off, the best comic book company in the world, and you can't argue with that. But I've never liked any of their Star Wars comics.
No.
Dark Horse did Star Wars properly. Although, in fairness, when Marvel owned it, it was much more in its childish kind of infancy, comic book days, with the big rabbit. What did you call him? The big green rabbit?
Oh, now you're asking.
I can't remember. But anyway, so it's coming back
get
home.
Like a whole barrage of tweets and stuff now about exactly who that character was.
Yes, hopefully, please. But I guess, you know what, I guess we saw this coming, and I would imagine if Marvel could do it, but it is very sad, because Dark Horse, I think, there was talk recently that Dark Horse were going to keep the property because they're doing such a good job with it. But I think this will be a bit of a disappointment to Dark Horse fans, and certainly a kick to the gonads for Dark Horse themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's a blessing and a curse in a way. I'm not really much of a comic book reader, so I can't really comment on it. But from the outside looking in, it's a blessing and a curse in a sense that, at least with it under the Marvel property and under the Disney property, you'll have that sense of continuity from the movie 7, 8, and 9 onward. So you won't have anything that'll contradict that, like say Dark Horse could do, because Dark Horse for the last odd number of years have went off and were able to make up whatever they wanted to after episode 6.
Yeah.
But with this, it's kind of, it has to abide by a certain strict timeline now.
Which brings us to our next story. Now, there's been a little, I was one of them, but a lot of people jumped on you can't do this, it's all wrong. Star Wars EU, right, the expanded universe, the Star Wars expanded universe. Many fans of Star Wars know that canon is pretty simple. Everything that happens in the movies counts. Everything that happens in anything spin-off material is EU. Games, comics, books, novels, TV shows, everything else. Basically, if it's not in the movie, it's not 100% concrete. Although George Lucas did say that the Clone Wars TV series was 100% canon as well. But anyway, Leland Chee was hired by Lucas Publishing in 2000 to create the Holocron, the authoritative licensing and continuity database for all Star Wars products. Previously, the Holocron divided Star Wars materials into levels, with works created by George Lucas, i.e. the 6 films, at the top, overriding various categories of expanded universe material. The 5 levels are, I don't know, do you know this, the levels of Star Wars continuity?
No.
Okay, right. G-canon, right? This is the absolute, right? This is the movies, scripts, novelizations, radio plays, any statements by George Lucas himself. G-canon overrides the lower levels of canon when there is a contradiction. Within G-canon, many fans follow an unofficial progression of canosity when the movies are the highest canon, followed by scripts, novelizations, radio play. Right. T-canon, are you yawning at this, or are you just yawning in general?
Kind of both.
T-canon refers to the canon level comprising of the 2 TV shows Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars live action series that we never got. C-canon is primarily composed of elements from the expanded universe, books, comic, games that bear the label Star Wars, games, RPGs, source books, or a special case. The stories and general backstory information are themselves fully C-canon, but the other elements such as character items, statistics, and gameplay are with a few exceptions to N-canon. S-canon is a secondary canon. The story itself is considered non-continuity, but the non-contradicting elements blah 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 blah. Okay?
Yeah.
Right, so basically...
Do you realise it does spell out Getixen?
Yes, right. N-canon are what-if stories, right? Okay, so, now, from now on, right, now here's the thing, right? Whenever George Lucas first wrote Star Wars, he referred to a thing called the Journal of the Wills, right? Okay. I have always seen... I'm such a nerd, right? Because obviously there's so many...
Are you a nerd to such a point where you point out there's only 3 or 2 readout displays? Well, there's supposed to be 3 readout displays?
I'm not quite that much of a nerd. I'm not that quite of a nerd. But I'm a nerd to the point where there's so many books, there's so many games, there's so many comics, there's the movies, there's TV series. Eventually things counteract other things, right? Oh, but that's not how it happened. Yes, that is how it happened. The way I always explained to myself was... the Journal of the Wills was basically like a history book, right? In our own history books, there's contradictions, okay? Yes. This is the way I see all the Star Wars stories, that they contradict each other, but they all work to the same final product.
Same goal, yeah.
Right, now, this could well be changing. From now on, the continuity of the Star Wars universe is going to be handled centrally by Lucasfilm, story group run by Pablo Hidalgo. Pablo, of course, who we met at Star Wars Celebration Europe, and Leland Chee. Chee has taken on to Twitter and said that the Lucasfilm story group will streamline the definition of what constitutes official canon by taking in hand every piece of Star Wars storytelling from here on out. Now, bear that in mind. So basically, everything Star Wars, be it games, TV shows, books, will be canon. So, once the comics and everything move over to Lucasfilm Disney, everything will be canon.
Right.
What had happened before that was writers were brought in to create stories. They wrote the stories. These stories then went back to Lucasfilm, who had like fact checkers, right? And some of these things got through, but they weren't 100%. Things have been written out of continuity. Things have been changed, like the Mandalorians and the Clone Wars. Their whole history was changed. There's things like characters that have popped up in Episode 1 that shouldn't have been there, blah, blah, blah. So, right until this point, after this point, everything, if it's Star Wars, it's official. It's canon.
Right, so everything now?
Everything. Presumably from 2015, once Marvel take over the comics and the movies and everything else. It's all going to be canon. right?
Okay.
So Leland Shea has gone on Twitter. He says Story Group has handled all facets of Star Wars telling, including blah 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 blah. Right. When asked if the Story Group's goal was to ditch the hierarchy system in favour of a single cohesive canon, Shea said that is definitely a primary goal of the Story Group. He continues saying that going forward, the canon field and holocron entries previously used to denote a work's canonical weight will be used only for internal classifications. Right. With Episode 7 hitting theatres in 2015 and Star Wars comics going back to Marvel the same year, odds are that the new canon will start to take shape right around then. Let's hope that this is mainly for 2015 and forward. Difficult to see, always in motion, the future is right. What does this mean for Star Wars canonicity? You know, we don't know. A lot of people are worried that this basically means that anything before 2015 that isn't episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6...
It's getting ditched.
It's getting ditched.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I don't think Disney/Lucasfilm are that brave/stupid.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would ever do that, especially because the fan outcry would just be
30
unreal.
years of history. You know,
Yeah,
there are
all
people
completely
out
wiped
there.
out.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
people out there that the comics are their Star Wars, the books are their
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Well, it's not just that, but on top of that as well, there's already a lot of controversy when it comes to canonicity because there's so much EU stuff that's been written after Episode 6.
Yeah.
There's been detailing. I mean, Mara Jade has come from the expanded universe, and now we're getting 7, 8, and 9. What does this mean for the existence of Mara Jade? What does this mean for the existence of everything that people held dear?
Plus the fact characters like Aura Singh, who were written in the books, then we saw Aura Singh in Episode 1, then she became a big character in the Clone Wars. You characters like Aayla Secura as well,
Yeah.
where Lucas seemed to pick and choose bits
Yeah.
that he liked.
So it seems that, you know, that kind of history that a lot of Star Wars fans, a lot of nerf herders have in their minds, you know, that's being all thrown into jeopardy now because we're getting 7, 8, and 9 and maybe 10, 11, and 12 and whatever. So there's always a lot of controversy there. So on top of that, to then say all the rest of this 30 years worth of history is all going down the toilet, I don't think they do that.
No.
You know, I think they're playing a risky enough game as it is just with 7, 8, and 9.
I agree.
But on top of that as well, does this now mean that Rebels is all officially 100% canon?
Well, we'd have to imagine it is.
Yeah.
But you see, the problem with this is then that things like the Thrawn trilogy is going to be written out. That doesn't happen anymore, which is such a big part of Star Wars universe. Does this mean that Darth Maul isn't back? He did die in Episode 1 and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of... I think at some point somebody's going to have to come and clear all this up.
Yeah, the Doctor. it's very timey-wimey, isn't it?
It's very timey-wimey. Here's one, right? This is a big story. This broke during the week.
Okay.
And this is a really, really strange story. Boba Fett, the movie. Right?
Yes.
You've been reading about this? You've followed this a little bit?
I have.
Okay, right. Obviously, everybody's sitting waiting right now for Star Wars Episode 7 news, right? Disney CEO Bob Iger previously confirmed that Lawrence Kasdan, who is writing Episode 7, after having co-penned The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi 30 years ago, and Simon Kinberg, who wrote the X-Men Days of Future Past, are working on Star Wars spin-offs derived from great Star Wars characters that are not a part of the overall saga. In a recent interview with AMC Movie Talk, director John Schnepp basically confirms that a Boba Fett solo movie is in the works, and that Lawrence Kasdan is the one writing the script for it. The director seemed pretty sure of himself, saying, "One of them's Boba Fett. It is, I know for a fact. I will never reveal my source, but it is the one being written by Lawrence Kasdan." Schnepp seemed serious about his claim, despite joking with other hosts shortly thereafter. You can watch the video at followthenerd.com. His comments come in at around 4 minutes 11 if you just search for Boba Fett in the search bar at the top of the site. If true, who would retract it? Here's in it, who would direct it? Joe Johnson. Joe Johnson's been talking about this for about 2 or 3 years.
He has the Boba Fett movie.
Saying that he was involved in a Boba Fett movie, and it kept coming up. You know, it was a big story, then it was, no, what's he talking about? It was a big story, no, what's he talking about? There's definitely something to this. I think this is a very, very likely story. Our own Ed, who wrote the story on the site, wrote, and I like this idea, personally I'd love for the whole movie to happen, then during the credits see Fett emerging from the Sarlacc pit, realising that the film has his memories, and perhaps give him motivation to fight his way free. I like that idea.
That would be awesome.
I like that idea. You're just seeing the
awesome.
hand coming out on the pit or something.
It's just covered in guts and entrails.
And his suit's torn to bits and he's...
clawing his way out.
I like that idea. I think that's pretty good. What I think's going to happen here, I think we might see the Boba Fett movie, we see the Han Solo movie, then we see a Boba Fett and Han Solo movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll come together in one movie.
Yeah, and you'll see the rivalry.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen here.
That'd be cool. And we know there's a lot of stories out there, and we know that Lucasfilm they have a lot of ideas in their head for Boba Fett. Because when we're talking to Daniel Logan at Celebration Europe, he was saying that perhaps he could have come back had Clone Wars continued to continue on the story of young Boba Fett. You know, and I'd like to see that. I'd like to see almost the life story of Boba Fett. You know, what happened to him at the end of Attack of the Clones? I haven't seen Clone Wars, but he does pop up in it.
He does, and his story is very much left open.
Right, so it would be great to see a continuation.